The clock on the wall showed 10:15 a.m., and 12-year-old Lily Chen was doing what she did best at Lincoln Middle School, disappearing. She sat in the back corner of the music classroom, her eyes fixed on the scratched wooden desk in front of her, hoping that if she stayed still enough, quiet enough, maybe nobody would notice her at all. It had been 3 months since her family moved from Taiwan to this small town in Pennsylvania. 3 months of struggling to find the right English words. 3 months of eating lunch alone in the cafeteria, while groups of friends laughed at tables around her. 3 months of being the girl nobody really knew. Music class was supposed to be her safe space. Mr. Patterson, the music teacher, was a tall man with graying hair who talked about composers and symphonies with the kind of passion that made his face light up. He never called on Lily to answer questions. He never put her on the spot. In his class, she could just listen, let the sounds wash over her, and remember home. But today felt different. There was an energy in the room that made her stomach tighten with worry. Mr. Patterson stood at the front of the class, tapping his conductor's baton against the piano. His eyes sparkled with excitement, which usually meant he was about to announce something big. The other students shifted in their seats, exchanging nervous glances. "All right, everyone," Mr. Patterson said, his voice booming across the room. "As you know, our annual spring recital is coming up in 6 weeks. This year I've decided to challenge each of you in a special way." A boy named Tommy groaned from the middle row. "Please don't say we have to perform solos," Mr. Patterson grinned. "That's exactly what I'm saying. Each of you will perform one piece, and I've carefully selected music that will push you just beyond your current abilities. That's how we grow as musicians." The room erupted in whispers and complaints. Lily felt her heart sink deep into her chest. She loved music. She loved playing piano. But performing in front of people? In front of the whole school? That was her worst nightmare. "I'll be assigning pieces based on what I think each of you can achieve with hard work and dedication," Mr. Patterson continued, pulling out a clipboard with names and assignments. He started calling out students one by one, matching them with pieces Lily recognized from her years of piano lessons back home. Tommy got assigned a simple Beatles song. A girl named Rebecca would play a Mozart piece that wasn't too complicated. Another student got a jazz arrangement that made him smile. The assignment seemed fair, matched to each person's skill level. Lily started to relax a little. Maybe Mr. Patterson would give her something easy. Maybe he'd understand that she was still adjusting, still finding her place. "Lily Chen," Mr. Patterson called out, and her whole body went rigid. Everyone turned to look at her. She felt heat creeping up her neck, spreading across her face. She wanted to melt into her chair and disappear through the floor. "You'll be performing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor," Mr. Patterson announced, making a note on his clipboard. The whispers stopped. The entire classroom went silent. Even Tommy, who usually joked about everything, looked shocked. Rebecca, who took private piano lessons and performed in competitions, turned around in her seat with wide eyes. "Mr. Patterson, that's one of the hardest pieces in classical piano. I've been playing for 8 years and my teacher says I'm not ready for Rachmaninoff yet." Mr. Patterson waved his hand dismissively. "Every student in this class is getting a challenging piece. Lily is perfectly capable of rising to the occasion. She has 6 weeks just like everyone else." Lily opened her mouth to speak, to say something, anything, but the words tangled up in her throat. Her English wasn't bad anymore. But in moments like this, when anxiety flooded her system, the words just wouldn't come. She wanted to tell Mr. Patterson that she knew the piece, that she'd performed it at a recital in Taipei when she was 10. That Rachmaninoff's dark, powerful music was some of her favorite to play, but instead she just nodded, her face burning as 24 pairs of eyes stared at her with a mixture of pity and second-hand embarrassment. "That's settled then," Mr. Patterson said cheerfully, moving on with his list. But Lily could barely hear the rest of the assignments. Her mind was spinning. When the bell rang, students filed out of the classroom in clusters, already gossiping about the recital assignments. Lily gathered her books slowly, hoping to be the last one out, hoping to avoid the stares and whispers. "I can't believe he gave her that piece," she heard Rebecca say in the hallway. "She's probably never even played classical music before. This is going to be a disaster. My mom says teachers aren't supposed to set students up to fail like that," another voice added. "Someone should talk to the principal." Lily hurried past them, keeping her eyes on the ground. She made it to the cafeteria and found her usual spot at the end of an empty table. Her lunch sat untouched in front of her. The sandwich her mother had carefully made that morning might as well have been cardboard. The truth was complicated, and Lily wasn't sure how to explain it, even if she wanted to. Back in Taiwan, she wasn't just another piano student. She was the girl who performed at the National Concert Hall when she was 9, the girl who won the Taipei Young Musicians Competition 2 years running. The girl whose teacher said she had a gift that comes along once in a generation. Her parents' living room was filled with trophies and certificates. Her old piano teacher, Mrs. Wang, used to say that Lily didn't just play music. She understood it in her bones, felt it in her heart, and shared it with her whole soul. But here in this new country where everything felt strange and overwhelming, Lily had made a choice. She would be invisible. Being special, being different, being the center of attention. It was too much. It was easier to blend in, to let people think she was just another quiet kid trying to keep up. Except now Mr. Patterson had ruined everything. He'd given her the one piece that would make hiding impossible. Rachmaninoff's Prelude wasn't background music. It was loud, dramatic, passionate, and powerful. You couldn't play it halfway. You either played it with everything you had or you didn't play it at all. That afternoon, Lily stayed late at school. She knew the old practice room near the band hall was usually unlocked. She'd discovered it during her first week. A dusty space with an upright piano that wasn't perfectly tuned but was good enough. She slipped inside and closed the door behind her, letting the silence settle around her. Then she sat at the piano, placed her hands on the keys, and closed her eyes. The opening chords of the Rachmaninoff Prelude came flooding back to her like an old friend. Her fingers remembered every note, every dynamic shift, every moment where the music swelled from a whisper to a roar. She played through the entire piece, and for those few minutes, she wasn't the invisible girl in the back of the classroom. She was herself again. When the final notes faded away, Lily sat in the quiet room, her hands still resting on the keys. She had 6 weeks until the recital. 6 weeks to decide who she wanted to be. The girl who hid in the shadows, or the girl who played with fire in her heart. She didn't know yet which one scared her more. The whispers started the very next day. Lily heard them in the hallways between classes, in the bathroom when she thought she was alone, and especially in the cafeteria during lunch. Everyone at Lincoln Middle School seemed to have an opinion about the quiet girl who'd been given an impossible task. I heard that. Piece takes professional pianists years to master, one girl said to her friend as they walked past Lily's locker. Mr. Patterson must have made a mistake or something. My older sister tried to learn it once, another voice chimed in. She gave up after 2 months. Said it was like trying to juggle while riding a unicycle. Lily kept her head down, pretending she didn't hear any of it, but every word felt like a small weight added to her shoulders. The thing was, people weren't being mean. They were being sympathetic, which somehow felt worse. Their pity wrapped around her like a blanket she didn't ask for and couldn't shake off. By the end of the first week, even teachers had started giving her concerned looks. Mrs. Anderson, her English teacher, pulled her aside after class one afternoon. She was a kind woman with warm eyes and a gentle voice that always made students feel safe. "Lily, honey," Mrs. Anderson said softly, "I heard about your music assignment. That's quite a challenging piece Mr. Patterson gave you." Lily nodded, not sure what to say. "You know, there's no shame in asking for help. If it's too difficult, I'm sure Mr. Patterson would understand if you asked for something different. Sometimes teachers don't realize how hard things can be for students, especially when they're adjusting to a new school." "I'm okay," Lily managed to say, forcing a small smile. "Thank you." Mrs. Anderson looked like she wanted to say more, but she just patted Lily's shoulder and let her go. Lily could feel her teacher's worried eyes following her down the hallway. The worst part was watching how people looked at her during music class. Mr. Patterson would ask about everyone's progress, and students would raise their hands eagerly to talk about what sections they were working on, what difficulties they were overcoming. When he turned to Lily, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. "How's the Rachmaninoff coming along, Lily?" he'd ask, his voice encouraging. "It's coming," she'd reply quietly, and that was all she'd say. She never told him that she practiced every day after school in the old practice room. She never mentioned that she could play the piece from memory, that her fingers knew every note like they knew the shape of her own hands. She just gave vague answers and watched Mr. Patterson's face grow more concerned with each passing week. What Lily couldn't tell anyone was that the practice room had become her secret world. Every afternoon after the hallways emptied and the school got quiet, she'd slip into that dusty room with the slightly out-of-tune piano. She'd close the door, sit on the worn bench, and let her fingers fly across the keys. Playing the Rachmaninoff prelude felt like coming home. The dark, moody opening chords reminded her of thunderstorms rolling across the mountains in Taiwan. The middle section, with its delicate melody, felt like her mother's lullabies, and the powerful ending. Those crashing chords that seemed to shake the very air that felt like everything she couldn't say with words. Sometimes she'd play other pieces too. Chopin nocturnes that floated through the air like whispered secrets. Beethoven sonatas that demanded attention and gave nothing back without a fight. Debussy compositions that painted pictures with sound. In that room, alone with the piano, Lily wasn't invisible. She was powerful. She was herself, but she always made sure nobody was around to hear. She'd peek into the hallway before entering, check that the band room next door was empty, listen for footsteps. Her secret had to stay secret. She wasn't ready for people to know, not yet. Maybe not ever. 3 weeks before the recital, the school counselor called Lily down to her office. Ms. Garcia was young, probably only a few years out of college, and she wore colorful scarves that brightened up her small office. Photos of students and thank you cards covered one wall. "Lily, please sit down," Ms. Garcia said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. "I wanted to check in with you. How are you feeling about everything?" "I'm fine," Lily said automatically. It was the answer she gave everyone. Ms. Garcia leaned forward, her expression kind but serious. "I've been hearing from some teachers that you seem stressed. And I know about your music assignment. Mr. Patterson means well, but sometimes he can be a bit ambitious with his expectations." Lily stayed quiet, her hands folded in her lap. "Here's the thing," Ms. Garcia continued. "You're still adjusting to a new country, a new school, a new language. That's already incredibly challenging. You shouldn't have to prove anything to anyone right now. If you want, I can talk to Mr. Patterson about choosing a different piece for you, something more manageable. There's absolutely no shame in that." For a moment, Lily considered telling the truth. She imagined explaining that she didn't need an easier piece, that she'd been playing difficult music since she was 6 years old, that the Rachmaninoff prelude wasn't the problem. The problem was standing on stage in front of hundreds of people and being seen. But the words stayed locked inside. Instead, she just said, "Thank you, but I want to try." Ms. Garcia studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but my door is always open if you need anything. Remember that." Meanwhile, Rebecca from music class had become the unofficial voice of concern. She'd taken it upon herself to advocate for Lily, though Lily never asked her to. Rebecca would catch Mr. Patterson before and after class, speaking in hushed but urgent tones. "She's going to be humiliated in front of the whole school," Lily overheard Rebecca say one day. "I'm not trying to be mean, Mr. Patterson, but that piece is beyond most high school students. It's not fair to put her through that." Mr. Patterson's response was harder to hear, but his tone sounded defensive. Lily caught phrases like growth through challenge and believing in students' potential. But even he was starting to look worried. He'd catch Lily's eye in class sometimes, and she could see the doubt creeping into his expression. She could practically hear his thoughts. Did I make a mistake? Did I push too hard? The guilt ate at Lily. She knew she was letting everyone worry for no reason. But every time she thought about telling the truth, about revealing that she could actually play the piece, her chest would tighten with anxiety. Being invisible was safe. Being noticed was terrifying. During lunch one day, about 2 weeks before the recital, Lily sat at her usual empty table and watched Rebecca and her friends across the cafeteria. They were laughing about something, probably some inside joke that came from years of friendship. Rebecca happened to glance over and caught Lily's eye. For a second, their gazes held, and Lily saw something unexpected in Rebecca's expression. Not pity, not sympathy, just genuine kindness. Rebecca got up and walked over, carrying her lunch tray. "Hey," she said, "mind if I sit here?" Lily's heart jumped. "Okay," she managed to say. Rebecca sat down across from her and took a bite of her sandwich. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Rebecca said, "Look, I know everyone's been talking about the recital assignment. I don't want to be another person bothering you about it. I just wanted to say that whatever happens up there, it doesn't define you. Music is supposed to be fun, you know?" Lily looked down at her own lunch. "I know," she said softly. "Mr. Patterson is a good teacher, but he doesn't always think about how scary performing can be," Rebecca continued. I've been playing in recitals since I was 6 and I still get nervous every single time. Last year I completely blanked in the middle of a piece and had to start over. It was mortifying, but you know what? Everyone survived. I survived. Something about Rebecca's honesty made Lily's chest feel a little lighter. Thank you, she said, and this time she meant it. That afternoon, Lily went to the practice room as usual. But as she played through the Rachmaninoff prelude, she realized something had shifted. The music sounded different, fuller, more honest. Maybe it was because for the first time in months, someone had talked to her like a real person instead of a problem to be solved. As the final chords rang out in the empty practice room, Lily sat with her hands still on the keys and made a decision. She was going to play this piece at the recital. Not because Mr. Patterson assigned it, not to prove anything to anyone, but because this music was part of who she was, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop hiding. The night of the spring recital arrived faster than Lily expected. One day she had 2 weeks left to prepare, and then suddenly it was Friday evening and her mother was helping her zip up the simple black dress they'd bought together at the mall. "You look beautiful," her mother said in Mandarin, smoothing down Lily's hair. Her mother's hands were shaking slightly, and Lily realized her mom was just as nervous as she was. Maybe more. Her father stood in the doorway of her bedroom holding his camera. He hadn't said much during the drive home from his office, but Lily could see the worry in his eyes. They'd moved to America for his job, uprooting their whole family, and their daughter had barely spoken or smiled in 3 months. Now she was about to perform in front of hundreds of strangers, playing one of the most difficult pieces in classical piano. "Are you ready?" her father asked gently. Lily nodded, even though her stomach felt like it was trying to tie itself into knots. She wasn't nervous about playing the music. She could play the Rachmaninoff prelude in her sleep at this point. What terrified her was everything else. The eyes that would be watching. The silence before she started. The moment when everyone would finally see her, really see her, and there would be nowhere to hide. The family drove to Lincoln Middle School in quiet. The parking lot was already filling up with cars. Parents and grandparents, siblings and friends all streaming toward the auditorium entrance. Lily's hands felt cold despite the warm spring evening. Inside, the school had been transformed. The hallways were decorated with music notes cut from construction paper. Teachers stood at doorways directing people where to go. The auditorium buzzed with the sound of hundreds of conversations mixing together into one loud hum. "I'll be in the 3rd row," her mother whispered, squeezing Lily's hand. "Right where you can see me. You're going to be wonderful." Lily wanted to believe her. She followed the signs pointing to the backstage entrance, her heart pounding harder with each step. Behind the heavy stage curtains, she found the other student performers gathered in nervous clusters. Some were doing vocal warm-ups. Others practiced fingering on invisible instruments. A few just sat on the floor looking terrified. Rebecca was there, dressed in a blue dress with her hair pulled back neatly. When she saw Lily, she walked over immediately. "Hey," Rebecca said with a small smile. "We're in this together, right?" "Right," Lily whispered. "I'm going on 4th. "When are you?" Rebecca asked. Lily had checked the program earlier. 15th. "That's good. You'll get to see how it goes first. Take some of the pressure off." Rebecca squeezed her arm. "You're going to do great. Just remember to breathe." Tommy wandered over, looking uncomfortable in a button-up shirt and tie. "This is torture," he announced. "Why do we have to perform in front of people? Why can't we just turn in a recording or something?" Despite her nerves, Lily almost smiled. Tommy always knew how to say what everyone was thinking. Mr. Patterson appeared from somewhere, clipboard in hand, trying to look calm but clearly stressed. He was wearing a suit instead of his usual casual teaching clothes, and his hair looked like he'd tried to smooth it down but given up halfway through. "All right. Everyone," he called out, clapping his hands to get their attention. "Remember everything we talked about. Focus on the music, not the audience. If you make a mistake, keep going. Nobody out there will notice small errors. You've all worked incredibly hard, and I'm proud of every single one of you." His eyes landed on Lily and his expression softened. He walked over and crouched down so he was at her eye level. The other students went back to their nervous preparations, giving them space. "Lily," Mr. Patterson said quietly, "I need to tell you something. I've been thinking a lot about your assignment over these past few weeks. I may have pushed too hard. I wanted to challenge you, but I realized I never actually asked if you wanted that challenge. Lily looked at him surprised. She could see the guilt written all over his face. What I'm trying to say is, he continued, if you can just get through the first section of the piece, that's enough. Nobody expects perfection. Nobody even expects you to finish it. You're brave just for trying, and that's what matters. Okay? He thought he was helping. He thought he was taking the pressure off. But his words made Lily's chest ache. He'd spent 6 weeks thinking she was struggling, drowning, desperately trying to learn music that was beyond her abilities, and she'd let him think that. She'd let everyone think that. I'll do my best, Lily said softly because she didn't know what else to say. Mr. Patterson patted her shoulder and stood up, moving on to encourage other students. Lily stood there feeling the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on her shoulders. The recital began. The curtains opened and Mr. Patterson walked onto the stage to welcome everyone. Lily peeked through a gap in the curtains and saw the auditorium packed with people. Every seat was filled. Some people even stood along the back wall. She spotted her parents in the third row, just like her mother promised. Her father had his camera ready. The first student walked onto the stage to scattered applause. Then the music started. A simple violin piece that went mostly well, except for one squeaky note that made people shift in their seats. But there was warm applause at the end. One by one, students performed. Some pieces were beautiful. Some were rough around the edges. A 6th grader forgot his part halfway through and had to restart, his face turning bright red. But the audience was kind, clapping encouragingly for everyone. Rebecca's turn came. She played a Chopin piece that was technically impressive and very safe. Every note was perfect, exactly as written on the sheet music, but it sounded more like an exercise than a performance. Still, she got enthusiastic applause. She'd done exactly what was expected of her. Lily watched from backstage as more students performed. Each one that finished meant she was one step closer to her turn. Her palms started sweating. Her breathing got shallow. She pressed her hands together, trying to keep them from shaking. Then she heard Mr. Patterson's voice announcing her name. Our next performer is Lily Chen, who will be playing Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor. There was an immediate shift in the auditorium's energy. Lily could feel it even from backstage. The murmurs started. Parents who'd heard stories from their kids about the quiet girl given an impossible assignment. Teachers who'd worried for weeks. Students who expected to witness a disaster. Lily took a deep breath. This was it. No more hiding. No more being invisible. In a few seconds, everyone would know the truth about who she really was. She walked onto the stage. The lights were brighter than she expected, warm and almost blinding after the darkness backstage. The grand piano sat in the center, gleaming black under the stage lights. It was much nicer than the old upright in the practice room. As Lily walked to the piano, she could hear the whispers in the audience. Sympathetic murmurs. Worried predictions. Someone near the front actually said, "Oh no," just loud enough for her to hear. She sat at the piano bench and adjusted it slightly, just like she'd done 1,000 times before. Her hands found their position on the keys. She looked out into the audience one more time and found her mother's face. Her mom gave her a tiny nod and Lily saw tears already forming in her eyes. The auditorium slowly fell silent. The coughing stopped. The program rustling ceased. Everyone was waiting, holding their breath, bracing themselves for what they thought was coming. Lily closed her eyes for just a moment. She thought about her old piano teacher in Taiwan, Mrs. Wang, who used to say that music wasn't about the notes on the page. It was about truth, about sharing something real and honest and human. She took one final breath, let it out slowly, and began to play. The opening chords of Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor exploded into the silent auditorium like thunder breaking through a clear sky. Loud, commanding, impossible to ignore. Her hands moved across the keyboard with absolute certainty, drawing out every ounce of drama and power from those famous opening measures. And in the audience, every single person sat up straighter, their eyes going wide, their mouths falling open in shock. This wasn't what they expected. This wasn't what anyone expected. This was something else entirely. The whispers stopped first, then the shuffling of programs, then the quiet coughs and cleared throats. Within seconds, the entire auditorium fell into a silence so complete that the only sound was the piano singing under Lily's fingers. This wasn't a nervous student stumbling through a difficult piece. This was mastery. Lily's hands flew across the keyboard with breathtaking confidence, pulling out every shade of emotion Rachmaninoff had written into the music. The dark, brooding opening gave way to cascading runs that sparkled like water. Her fingers knew exactly where to press, when to hold back, when to surge forward with power. In the third row, Lily's mother had both hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Her father sat frozen with his camera forgotten in his lap, just watching their daughter transform before his eyes. This was the girl they remembered from Taiwan, the girl who disappeared for 3 months. She was back. Mr. Patterson stood at the side of the stage, gripping the curtain so hard his knuckles had turned white. His mouth hung open slightly. He'd taught music for 15 years. He'd heard students play Chopin and Mozart and Beethoven, but he'd never heard anything like this from a 12-year-old, not even close. Rebecca sat backstage with the other students, and her perfect performance from earlier suddenly felt small and safe. She watched through the gap in the curtains as Lily attacked the piano's keys with controlled fury, making the instrument roar and whisper and sing. This wasn't just playing notes. This was storytelling. This was magic. The piece moved through, its moody middle section, and Lily's touch became tender, almost fragile. She drew out the melody with such delicate emotion that several people in the audience felt their throats tighten. The music spoke of loneliness, of longing, of being far from home, and every person in that auditorium understood they weren't just hearing a performance, they were hearing Lily's heart. Tommy, watching from backstage, whispered to no one in particular, "Holy crap." The music built again, growing darker and more intense. Lily's whole body moved with the rhythm now, swaying slightly as her hands raced up and down the keyboard. The technical difficulty of what she was doing was staggering. There were passages that professional pianists practiced for months to perfect. Lily played them like they were part of her own language. In the audience, a music teacher from the high school leaned over to her husband and whispered, "That's conservatory level. That's beyond high school level. Who is this kid?" The piece climbed toward its climax and Lily threw herself into it completely. The hesitation she'd carried for 3 months, the fear of being seen, the weight of trying to be invisible, all of it poured into the music. The piano thundered under her hands. People in the back rows could feel the vibrations in their chests. And then came the ending. Those famous dramatic chords that Rachmaninoff is known for. Each one landed with perfect timing, perfect weight, perfect intention. The final chord rang out across the auditorium, and Lily let it sustain, her hands still on the keys, her eyes closed, letting the sound fade naturally into silence. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence was so profound it felt sacred. Then someone in the middle of the auditorium started clapping. Just one person, then another. Then suddenly everyone was on their feet, applause washing over the stage like a wave. It wasn't polite recital applause. It was the kind of applause that comes from genuine shock and awe. Lily opened her eyes. The bright stage lights made the standing audience look like a sea of shadows, all of them on their feet, clapping and cheering. Some people were actually shouting. A few parents had tears running down their faces, though they probably couldn't explain why. She stood up from the piano bench slowly, almost in a daze, and managed a small bow. The applause grew louder. Her mother was crying openly now, clapping so hard it must have hurt her hands. Her father had finally remembered his camera and was taking photos through his own tears. Lily walked off stage on shaky legs. The moment she was behind the curtain, the other students mobbed her. They surrounded her with questions and exclamations, their faces showing pure amazement. "That was incredible," someone said. "Where did you learn to play like that?" another voice asked. "You've been hiding this the whole time?" Tommy asked, shaking his head in disbelief. Rebecca pushed through the crowd and just stared at Lily for a moment. Then she started laughing, not in a mean way, but in the way you laugh when something is so unexpected you don't know how else to react. "I was worried about you," Rebecca said. "I spent 6 weeks feeling sorry for you, and you can play like that?" Lily didn't know what to say. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Everything felt surreal, like she was watching this happen to someone else. Mr. Patterson appeared, weaving through the cluster of students. His eyes were red, and Lily realized with shock that her teacher had been crying. He stopped in front of her, and for a long moment, he just looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "Lily," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Why didn't you tell me you could play like that?" It was the same question Rebecca had asked, the same question probably everyone was thinking. Lily looked up at her teacher, at his confused and overwhelmed expression, and something inside her finally loosened. "You didn't ask," she said simply, and for the first time in 3 months she felt like herself. Mr. Patterson let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. "I didn't ask," he repeated. "You're right. I didn't ask." He shook his head. "Lily, that was one of the most incredible performances I've ever witnessed. Where did you learn to play like that?" "Taiwan," Lily said. "I studied there since I was 4. I performed with youth orchestras. I won some competitions." "Some competitions," Mr. Patterson repeated faintly. "Some competitions." He looked like he might need to sit down. "I assigned you that piece thinking I was pushing you to grow. I had no idea you were already beyond anything I could teach." The recital continued, but nobody could focus on the remaining performances. The students who went on after Lily did their best, but the energy in the auditorium had completely shifted. People kept whispering about the quiet girl who'd stunned them all. Programs rustled as parents checked her name again. Who was Lily Chen? When the final performer finished and Mr. Patterson came out for closing remarks, he could barely get through his prepared speech. He kept looking over at where Lily stood with the other students, still trying to process what had happened. After the recital ended and the auditorium began to empty, people didn't just leave. They lingered. Parents who'd never spoken to Lily's parents before approached them in the lobby, gushing about her performance. The high school music teacher hunted down Mr. Patterson to get Lily's contact information. "That girl should be studying at a conservatory," the high school teacher said urgently. "Does she have a private instructor? She needs to be working with someone who can actually challenge her." Mr. Patterson could only nod, still looking dazed. Rebecca found Lily in the crowd and pulled her aside. Her expression was complicated, impressed, embarrassed, and something else Lily couldn't quite identify. "I need to apologize," Rebecca said. "I spent weeks talking about you like you were some charity case. I thought you were struggling and I felt so superior because I was the good pianist. I was actually kind of threatened when Mr. Patterson gave you that assignment because I thought it made my accomplishments look less important." Lily started to say it was okay, but Rebecca held up her hand. "Let me finish," Rebecca continued. "Watching you play tonight made me realize something. I've been playing it safe my whole life. Perfect technique, no risks, no real emotion. You played with your whole heart. You weren't trying to be perfect. You were trying to be honest, and that's what made it incredible." "I was just scared," Lily admitted, "of being different, of standing out. I thought if I stayed quiet and invisible, it would be easier." "Was it easier?" Rebecca asked. Lily thought about the past 3 months, the loneliness, the isolation, eating lunch alone every day, letting people worry about her for no reason, hiding the thing she loved most in the world because she was afraid of what people would think. "No," Lily said quietly. "It wasn't easier at all." Rebecca smiled, and this time it was genuine, with no hint of competition or comparison. "Well, you definitely can't hide anymore. Everyone's going to want to know you now." It should have been terrifying. 3 months ago, it would have been Lily's worst nightmare. But standing there in the emptying auditorium, still wearing her recital dress, still feeling the echo of music in her fingers, Lily realized something had changed. She wasn't scared anymore. Or maybe she was still scared, but it didn't matter as much. Because for the first time since moving to America, she felt like she could breathe. Mr. Patterson appeared one more time before they left, pulling Lily and her parents aside. "I'm going to make some calls," he said. "There are people who need to hear you play, programs that could help you develop your gift if you're interested." Lily looked at her parents. Her mother was still dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Her father nodded encouragingly. "I'm interested," Lily said, and her voice was steady and clear. As they walked to the parking lot under the spring stars, Lily felt different. Lighter somehow. The invisible girl was gone, but the person who remained felt more real than she had in months. Monday morning felt different. Lily walked through the front doors of Lincoln Middle School expecting things to go back to normal, but normal didn't exist anymore. The girl who used to slip through hallways unseen was now the girl everyone wanted to talk to. "That's her," she heard someone whisper as she passed, but this time the whisper didn't carry pity or concern. It carried awe. At her locker, 3 girls from her English class approached nervously. One of them, a girl named Amy with braces and red hair, spoke up first. "I'm Lily. We just wanted to say your performance was amazing. Like seriously incredible." "Thank you," Lily said, and she meant it. The words didn't catch in her throat the way they used to. "How long have you been playing?" another girl asked. "Since I was 4, Lily answered, closing her locker. "In Taiwan before we moved here." The girl's eyes widened. "Wait, you were that good back in Taiwan?" Amy asked. "Did you perform there?" Lily nodded. "Sometimes. In competitions and concerts." She waited for the familiar anxiety to rise up, the urge to end the conversation and escape. But it didn't come. These girls weren't interrogating her. They were just curious. They wanted to know her. "That must have been so hard," the third girl said softly. "Coming here and starting over. Not telling anyone about something so important." Something in Lily's chest loosened even more. "It was hard," she admitted. "But I think I made it harder than it needed to be." The morning bell rang and the girls had to rush to class, but they waved goodbye like they were already friends. Lily watched them go, feeling strange and light. This was what she'd been afraid of. Being known, being seen, and it wasn't scary at all. It was kind of nice. In music class, the energy was completely different. Students who'd barely looked at Lily before now studied her with new interest. Mr. Patterson stood at the front of the room looking like he hadn't slept much over the weekend. "All right, everyone," he began, his voice carrying a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "I think we all learned something important Friday night. And I'm not just talking about Lily's remarkable performance, though we'll get to that." He paused, looking around at all his students. "I learned that I made assumptions. I saw a quiet student who was new to the school, and I assumed that meant she needed to be pushed and challenged. I never asked about her background. I never asked what she was capable of. I just assigned her the hardest piece I could think of and hoped for the best." The classroom was silent. Mr. Patterson's honesty made everyone uncomfortable in the way truth sometimes does. "Lily," he said, turning to her directly, "I owe you an apology. A real one. I should have talked to you. I should have asked questions. Instead, I let you carry the weight of everyone's assumptions for 6 weeks, including my own." Lily felt her face flush, but not from embarrassment. From something else. Understanding, maybe. "You gave me a reason to play again," she said quietly. "I stopped playing when I came here. I put away that part of myself because I thought it would make things easier. Your assignment, even though you didn't know I could do it, it forced me to remember who I was." Mr. Patterson's eyes got a little watery. "That's generous of you to say. But I still should have asked." Rebecca raised her hand. "Mr. Patterson, can I say something?" He nodded. "I think we all made assumptions," Rebecca said, glancing at Lily. "I know I did. I saw someone I thought was struggling, and instead of offering real friendship or help, I just felt sorry for her. Or worse, I felt threatened because I wanted to be the best pianist. Watching Lily perform made me realize I've been playing it safe for years. I can play the notes perfectly, but I'm not really saying anything with the music. Not like she does." Other students started nodding. Tommy raised his hand next. "I just assumed the new kid from another country wouldn't be good at stuff." "That's messed up. Like really messed up. I'm sorry, Lily." The apologies kept coming, and Lily felt overwhelmed in a completely different way than before. These people weren't pitying her. They were being real with her, honest. "It's okay," Lily said. "I let you think those things. I could have told the truth any time. I didn't know how." Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "Well, now we all know. And Lily, I have some news. I made some calls over the weekend like I promised. Professor Mitchell from the Regional Conservatory wants to meet you. She runs a special program for young musicians on Saturday mornings. If you're interested, she'd like you to audition." Lily's heart jumped. She'd heard of programs like that back in Taiwan. Working with real musicians. Learning from people who understood music at the deepest level. "I'm very interested," she said, and this time her voice didn't shake at all. The weeks that followed were a blur of change. The conservatory audition went well. Professor Mitchell actually cried during Lily's performance, which Lily learned was a good sign. She was accepted into the Saturday program, which meant working with high school and even college students who were serious about music. But the biggest changes happened at Lincoln Middle School. Rebecca started sitting with Lily at lunch, and soon other students joined them. They talked about everything, music, yes, but also homework and movies and the weird smell in the science lab, and whether Mr. Harrison's toupee was obvious to everyone, or just them. Lily helped Rebecca with her piano technique, showing her how to add emotion without sacrificing precision. In return, Rebecca helped Lily feel more confident speaking up in other classes. They became real friends, the kind who could be honest with each other even when it was uncomfortable. Tommy, who'd been so terrified of his recital performance, asked Lily if she'd help him with his guitar playing. "I'm not trying to be a genius or anything," he said. "I just want to be better. And you seem like you actually get music, you know?" So Lily started helping Tommy during study hall, and she discovered she loved teaching, breaking down music into pieces someone else could understand, watching them improve. It felt almost as good as performing. Mr. Patterson changed his whole teaching approach. He started asking students about their backgrounds, their experiences, their goals. He stopped assigning music and started having conversations about what each student wanted to learn. His classroom became a place where students felt safe to try and fail and grow. One afternoon, about a month after the recital, Lily's mother picked her up from school and they drove to a small music store downtown. They'd made an appointment to look at pianos. The old upright in the practice room was fine for practicing, but Lily needed a real instrument at home. The store owner, an elderly man who'd sold pianos for 40 years, led them to a beautiful baby grand in the corner. "Try it," he said simply. Lily sat down and played a few scales, then a section of a Chopin nocturne. The sound was rich and warm, so different from the practice room piano. Her mother stood behind her, watching. "What do you think?" her mother asked in Mandarin. Lily played a few more notes, letting the sound ring out. "It's perfect," she said. Her mother smiled. "Then it's yours. We should have done this months ago. We should have helped you hold on to this part of yourself." "I wasn't ready months ago," Lily said honestly. "I needed time. I needed to figure out who I was here, not just who I was in Taiwan." They bought the piano and the store arranged delivery for the following week. On the drive home, Lily looked out the window at the town that had felt so foreign 3 months ago. It still wasn't home exactly, not the way Taiwan was home, but it was becoming something, a place where she belonged. That Saturday, Lily had her first session at the conservatory. She was the youngest student there by 2 years, but nobody treated her like a kid. Professor Mitchell introduced her to other serious musicians. A violinist preparing for Juilliard auditions, a cellist who'd performed with regional orchestras, a composer who wrote music that made Lily's brain hurt in the best way. They played together, learned together, pushed each other. Between pieces, they talked about music theory and technique and interpretation. For the first time since moving to America, Lily felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. On Monday, Mr. Patterson asked Lily to perform for the music class. Not a difficult classical piece this time. "Play something you love," he said. "Something that makes you happy." Lily thought for a moment, then sat at the classroom piano. She played a piece she'd written herself over the weekend. It was simple compared to Rachmaninoff, but it was honest. The melody carried hints of Taiwanese folk songs her grandmother used to sing, mixed with the rhythms of her new American life. It was a bridge between two worlds, two versions of herself that were finally learning to exist together. When she finished, the classroom burst into applause, not the shocked standing ovation of the recital, but something warmer, appreciation from people who were starting to really know her. Rebecca caught up with Lily after class. "That was beautiful," she said. "Was it new?" "I wrote it this weekend," Lily admitted. "You composed too?" Rebecca laughed and shook her head. "Of course you do. You know what? I'm not even jealous anymore. I'm just glad we're friends." "Me too," Lily said, and she realized how much she meant it. That afternoon, As Lily practiced in the old practice room one last time before her new piano arrived, she thought about everything that had changed. She thought about Mr. Patterson's assignment that had seemed like a punishment, but turned into a gift. She thought about hiding her talent because she was afraid,